The driver opens my door, and Connecticut winter air slaps my face as I stand before my family's estate. The cold bites instantly, sharp and bracing, carrying the faint scent of snow and distant pine. Through the tall, leaded glass windows, crystal chandeliers spill warm golden light across the Thanksgiving gathering inside, illuminating polished silver and carefully curated smiles. Laughter bursts from the dining room, Brandon's unmistakable booming guffaw rising above the others, loud and self-satisfied. My fingers curl tighter around the leather portfolio in my hand, the documents inside worth more than this $12 million mansion and every antique lining its walls. I pause with my hand hovering over the heavy brass doorknob. 10 years. A full decade since I walked out of this house, under a sky that offered no mercy. Cast aside as the quiet one, the daughter who never fit the Grand Clark narrative, the afterthought in a dynasty built on volume and ego. I smooth the lapel of my charcoal suit jacket, Savile Row tailoring, precise and understated. No one inside would recognize the craftsmanship, and I prefer it that way. The slim platinum bracelet resting at my wrist catches the porch light for a fleeting second. No diamonds, no ostentatious family crest, nothing to signal wealth to those who measure worth by shine. I am not here for reconciliation. I am not here to reminisce. I am here to reclaim what was taken from me, not merely money or title, but acknowledgement of my value. Through the window, I see my father commanding the room, as always, gesturing broadly with a crystal tumbler in hand, while Brandon nods beside him like a loyal understudy. My mother stands slightly behind them, smile fixed and fragile as porcelain, fingers pale around the stem of her wineglass. Savannah poses near the fireplace, red dress clinging strategically, angling her phone for selfies that will be filtered and broadcast within minutes. The scene is a portrait of excess and entitlement. My quiet luxury feels like a concealed blade. The knob turns beneath my fingers. Christmas dinner. 10 years ago. The memory surfaces uninvited. Father's fist slamming against the mahogany table when I question Brandon's reckless expansion plan, expanding manufacturing without securing supply chains. If you're not contributing, you don't get a voice in this family. His words were precise, surgical. Brandon smirked over his bourbon as though the verdict pleased him. That night, freezing rain hammered my windshield while I packed my belongings and drove toward uncertainty. No one followed, no one called me back. The foyer smells unchanged. Beeswax, aged polish, the faint musk of inherited wealth. Conversations falter briefly as I enter, then resume in slightly higher tones. Mother's eyes widen in startled recognition. Father's narrow with irritation. Brandon detaches himself from a circle of board members and strides toward me with deliberate swagger. Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence. His gaze drops to my wrist. Nice watch. Department store clearance rack? The Patek Philippe resting against my pulse cost more than his imported sports car. I don't enlighten him. Hello, Brandon. Happy Thanksgiving. My voice surprises even me with its steadiness. He studies me, unsettled by the composure that replaced the uncertainty he remembers. Martha appears at my side, silver tray balanced expertly. 30 years she has served this family, and she remains the only one who ever truly saw me. Her eyes crease warmly. Miss Briney, welcome home. She offers a crystal tumbler. Your favorite, Macallan 25. Neat. My fingers tremble faintly as I accept it, but steady when I lift it to my lips. The whiskey burns slow and dignified, heat spreading through my chest. Martha remembers. Of course she does. Across the room, Father calls for Brandon to join him in the study. The Thompson account must be discussed before dinner. His voice glides past me as though I'm invisible. Mother hesitates, uncertain whether to approach. Savannah remains absorbed in her screen, excluded before speaking a single word. I watch them gather near the study door, Brandon animated, Father approving. They have no idea what rests inside the portfolio I hold. No concept of the leverage I've built. Another sip of whiskey. Their assumption that I remain powerless is an insult and an advantage. I linger outside Father's study, leaning lightly against the paneled wall. Through the slightly open door, his voice carries. We've kept her out of grandfather's trust for a decade, Brandon. One dinner changes nothing. My breath stills. Brandon laughs. She has no idea about the amendments, legally airtight. The old man thought she'd run the company someday. Father's reply drips with disdain. Imagine believing she had unique insight. Thank God we corrected that delusion. Rage simmers beneath my calm exterior. Not one muscle betrays me. They haven't merely sidelined me. They've rewritten history. When Brandon exits, admiring his diamond-studded Rolex, I slip into the study. I know precisely where to look. Third drawer on the right. The folder reads Clark Family Trust, amended. Page after page confirms it. My name struck through. Clauses altered. Grandfather's intentions twisted. I photograph every sheet with deliberate care. "Dinner in 5 minutes," Martha calls. I restore everything perfectly. The dining room gleams with curated opulence. Chandeliers, silver, china worth more than many annual salaries. Father presides at the head of the table. Brandon occupies the favorite seat at the right. Savannah adjusts the centerpiece for her live stream. Perfect lighting for my followers. Mother's wine glass is refilled again. Father rises. "Before carving the turkey, I'd like to deliver my annual State of the Company address. Creston Systems has faced challenges, but negotiations are complete. The company will be sold by year's end to an undisclosed buyer." My fork stills me there. "Brandon will retain his executive role with enhanced compensation." Brandon adds eagerly, "And the yacht deposit is already placed." Savannah mentions new influencer contracts, Leverton-Creston connections. I observe everything. The faint flush on Father's neck, Mother's tightened grip, the accountant's subtle discomfort. "Most importantly," Father says, meeting my eyes at last, "we'll finally eliminate dead weight." I am the implication. Brandon lifts his glass. "To my new role as Chief Strategy Officer." "To innovation," Father says. Savannah leans close to me. "At least you won't have to pretend you were ever inheriting anything." I sip water calmly. They believe this is triumph. They do not know it is prelude. Glasses clink. Power rests in my pocket, heavy and undeniable. After the main course, Father stands again. "To family loyalty," he declares, gaze skimming past me. Guests glance sideways in awkward sympathy. Brandon passes around yacht photos. 52 feet, custom teak throughout. When the phone nears me, he waves it away. "Skip Briney, she wouldn't understand." Savannah gathers everyone for a photo, excluding me. Clark family traditions, #blessed. The flash erupts. I remember Austin, the empty office, sleeping behind a desk, showering at a gym, living on ramen, becoming B.E. Quinn when family lawyers threatened action over the Clark name, selling grandfather's gold pocket watch to fund my first server farm. "Time is the only limited resource," he used to say. 18-hour days. Purchasing Creston shares quietly through intermediaries. Watching them from afar. Martha appears beside me again, setting down dessert. As she leans to place a slice of pumpkin pie before me, her hand briefly squeezes my shoulder. "Your grandfather would be proud," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the dinner conversation. "He always said you were the only one who truly understood value." Her words straighten my spine. The validation I never received from my family comes from the woman who watched me grow up, who saw what they refused to see. Father stands again, tapping his knife against his glass. The candles cast dramatic shadows across his face as conversation dies down. "I have an announcement," he declares, satisfaction evident in his expression. "As some of you know, we've been in negotiations with buyers for several months." He pauses for effect. "Creston Systems has been sold, and none of you are getting a dime." Savannah drops her phone mid-selfie.
"What? You promised me the PR division?" Brandon's face flushes crimson. "This isn't legal. I'll contest it." Father waves off their protests. "The deal is done. Evertech Holdings, $57 million. A generous offer considering recent performance issues." He looks pointedly at Brandon. I set down my water glass carefully. "Who's the buyer?" All eyes turn to me, the first time I've spoken since dinner began. Father frowns, clearly annoyed at my interruption. "Evertech Holdings," he repeats slowly, as if I might not comprehend. "A tech conglomerate based in—" I stand, napkin falling to the floor. "That's me." The room freezes. Brandon's mouth hangs open. Savannah stops mid-text. Father's eyebrows draw together in confusion. "What nonsense is this?" he demands. Martha enters with the coffee service, moving with quiet efficiency around the stunned dinner guests. She places the finest Limoges cup before me. First, a small act of allegiance that doesn't go unnoticed. The contrast is stark. Martha's quiet respect versus my family's open dismissal. Her small gesture gives me strength for what comes next. Outside in the circular drive, James waits in the car, final papers ready. My attorney since day one in Austin, when he took equity instead of payment I couldn't provide. Another person who saw my worth when my family couldn't. I reach for the leather portfolio I brought with me, pulling out a thick document bearing multiple signatures from the Creston board. "Perhaps I should introduce myself properly," I say, my voice steady. "I'm B. Quinn, CEO of Nova Bridge Systems." I slide the merger agreement across the polished mahogany toward my father. The board voted unanimously last week, 8-0. Father's face drains of color as his eyes lock on my company's logo, a stylized bridge spanning a rising Sunday. The same image grandfather had sketched decades ago for his original vision of Creston before father transformed it into something unrecognizable. "That's not possible," he whispers, but there's no conviction in his voice. For the first time in my life, I watch certainty drain from him like water through open fingers. Father sets his hands down with trembling fingers. All eyes lock on me as I stand, the portfolio open on the table, revealing the truth that's been 10 years in the making. I built Nova Bridge from nothing, I say, my voice steady, as I maintain eye contact with each family member in turn. While Brandon was buying yachts with company funds, I was sleeping on my office floor in Austin. I slide the first document across the polished mahogany. Mother reaches for her reading glasses, her expression shifting from shock to something I haven't seen in years, perhaps pride. $240 million in valuation, built client by client, contract by contract. I place a finger on the quarterly report. While Father was dismissing me as inconsequential, I was securing capital investments from the very suppliers Creston had alienated. Brandon lurches forward. This is corporate espionage. You stole our clients. Number. The word falls between us like a gauntlet. I extract another document and slide it toward him. These are legally executed contracts with former clients who left Creston after your mismanagement. Would you like me to detail which ones abandoned ship after you failed to deliver on 3 consecutive promises? Father's face reddens. I'll invalidate this sale. The board would never. The board voted unanimously. I produced the meeting minutes, complete with signatures. After Brandon's embezzlement was discovered, $280,000 to be exact, they were eager for new leadership. After Brandon's time's embezzlement, his mouth opens, then closes. In the silence, I hear Savannah's phone drop to the table. That's a lie, Father says, but the words lack conviction. I remove a USB drive from my portfolio. The forensic accounting report is quite thorough. Would you like me to play the recording of the emergency board meeting where your CFO detailed the irregularities? Father looks around the table, suddenly aware of the dinner guests witnessing his unraveling. The corporate facade he's maintained for decades cracks before my eyes. The doorbell chimes. Perfect timing. That would be James Harrington, my attorney. I stand as Martha appears at the dining room entrance.
Mr. Harrington is here, Miss Brioni. Shall I show him in? Martha's eyes gleam with satisfaction. Please do. Martha returns moments later with James, who carries a slim leather briefcase. Without being asked, Martha brings Father's reading glasses from his study. James nods to me before addressing the table. Good evening. I have the transition documents ready for signatures. Brandon's face pales as he finally grasps the full legal implications of his actions. You can't possibly think I'll sign anything. Your signature isn't required, James says, placing documents before Father. The board's approval supersedes management in cases of malfeasance. Malfeasance? Brandon sputters. That's slander. I lean forward. It's only slander if it isn't true. Would you like to explain the wire transfers to your account in the Caymans, or shall I? Brandon's bluster deflates. He glances at Father, looking for rescue that doesn't come. Savannah's influencer persona drops away as she calculates her sudden financial vulnerability. What about my contract as brand ambassador? Terminated as of yesterday, I reply, along with the expense account that funded your Aspen trip last month. Father grasps at his remaining authority. This is my company. I built it from... Grandfather built it, I correct him quietly. You were its caretaker, and you failed. The dinner guests shift uncomfortably as they witness the collapse of the family dynasty. Across the table, I notice Mother's hand steadying for the first time tonight. She catches my eye and gives a nearly imperceptible nod. When Savannah begged to be the face of my rebranded company, I hesitated. Would including her in some capacity honor my grandfather's belief in family, or would it perpetuate the toxic patterns I'd worked so hard to escape? James slides the final document toward Father. This acknowledges transfer of operational control, effective immediately. Father stares at the paper as if it might bite him. You think you can run Creston better than I can? I know I can, starting with reversing the outsourcing decision that cost us the Westlake contract. The pen wavers in his hand. Behind him, I notice Mother watching with an expression I can't quite read. She catches my eye and mouths something that looks like, after dinner. Brandon shoves back from the table. This is ridiculous. I'm calling our lawyers. Savannah stands too, already punching numbers into her phone. My agent needs to hear about this. Only Father remains seated, diminished in his tailored suit, the magnitude of his failure settling on his shoulders like an invisible weight. He looks up at me with unfamiliar uncertainty. What happens now? He asks, his voice barely above a whisper. Before I can answer, Mother speaks, her voice clearer than I've heard all evening. Brioni, might I have a word with you privately? After dinner? The request hangs in the air, unexpected, intriguing. What does she know that I don't? I nod. Of course. After 10 years of silence, it seems my mother finally has something to say. Father leans forward across the polished conference table, his voice softening to a tone I haven't heard since childhood. Brioni B., he says, using my old nickname like a skeleton key to unlock doors long sealed. Let's be reasonable about this. Keep the company if you must, but surely there's room for family. His smile stretches too tight across his face. Brandon nods eagerly beside him, the same bobblehead agreement I've seen at every family gathering when Father speaks. I could advise on operations, Brandon offers, his voice pitched for sincerity, while his eyes calculate his survival. Keep my current living arrangements, of course, but lend my expertise where needed. I resist the urge to ask what expertise he means exactly. The ability to sink $300,000 into a yacht while the company's infrastructure crumbled, perhaps. Savannah looks up from her phone, suddenly interested. My followers would go crazy for a corporate girl boss redemption story. I could be the face of whatever rebrand you're planning. Father clears his throat, playing his final card. Your grandfather believed in keeping business in the family. He'd be disappointed by this.
Vindictiveness. The words land with precision, aimed at the little girl who once trailed after grandfather through the factory floor, memorizing part numbers and supply chains while Brandon and Savannah stayed home. I open the leather portfolio on the table. The sound of the clasp releasing echoes in the sudden silence. Grandfather gave me this the summer before he died. I slide out a yellow document, its edges worn soft from the years I'd kept it hidden. The original trust document, the one you told the attorneys was lost after his death. Father's face drains of color as I lay it flat on the table. He knew you'd try to exclude me. That's why he gave me my copy directly. I trace my finger along the faded text. Section 4, paragraph 3. My granddaughter, Bryony Elizabeth Clark, shall receive controlling interest in Creston Systems upon reaching the age of 30, regardless of intervening management decisions. Brandon lurches forward. That can't be legal. It's notarized, witnessed, and filed with the state. My voice remains calm. I didn't use it because I wanted to succeed on my own terms, not because I couldn't. I turn another page in my portfolio. Nova Bridge wasn't a random name. Nova means new. Bridge honors grandfather's original vision for Creston, building connections between technologies, not exploiting them for quick profit. Mother watches me, her wine glass untouched for the first time tonight. Grandfather knew exactly who understood true value. I lay out my restoration plans, the innovation division that would rehire engineers Brandon had fired, the legacy product lines father had abandoned despite their steady profitability. This isn't about hurting you, I say, surprising myself with the truth in those words. It's about rebuilding what matters. Father leads us to his study, the inner sanctum, where family decisions were always made without me. The hunting prints on the walls, the leather chairs positioned for men taller than I am, the heavy curtains blocking natural light, everything designed to intimidate. James places the final acquisition papers on grandfather's mahogany desk, the same desk where father had once told me I didn't deserve a voice. You can't possibly understand this business. Father attempts one final grasp at authority as I lift the pen. You've been gone 10 years. I sign my name with steady strokes. Your manufacturing costs increased 18% while quality control decreased 22%. Your server infrastructure is running on systems 3 generations out of date. You're paying triple market rate for cloud storage because Brandon canceled the IT director position to fund his boat. The Austin distribution center operates at 30% capacity because you refuse to invest in automation that would have paid for itself in 14 months. And you're hemorrhaging talent because you cut the equity program that grandfather established. The scratch of my pen on paper punctuates each point. Father's mouth opens, then closes. I reach for the nameplate on the desk, Donald Clark, CEO, and slide it into the drawer. From my portfolio, I withdraw a polished brass plate, aged but recently restored. William Clark, founder. Grandfather's original, I explain, placing it at the desk center. Brandon storms out, muttering about lawyers. Savannah follows, already scheduling damage control with her manager. Father stands alone in the room that once amplified his power, now diminished by truth and documentation. The board wants a full audit, I tell him, closing my portfolio. Brandon's financial decisions will face particular scrutiny. My words hang in the air between us, neither threat nor promise, simply fact. As father finally leaves, mother remains seated in the leather chair nearest the window. Her hands rest in her lap, steady for the first time all evening. Bryony, she says quietly, we need to talk. I look at this woman who stood silently by while her husband dismantled her father's legacy, who watched her daughter drive away in freezing rain 10 years ago without a word. What has she known all these years? What silent calculations has she made behind that porcelain smile and crystal wine glass? The grandfather clock in the corner ticks steadily forward as we face each other across decades of unspoken truths. The morning sun streams through floor-to-ceiling windows as I settle into my chair at Novacrest Technologies. My fingertips trace the engraved brass nameplate on my desk. Bryony Clark, CEO. 6 months since Thanksgiving dinner, and this still feels surreal. The muted chime of my intercom breaks the silence. Miss Clark, your 9 o'clock is ready. Thank you, Eliza. Send them in. My leadership team files in. 6 department heads whose talents had been overlooked by traditional corporate structures. A former military strategist who couldn't break into management because she lacked an Ivy League degree. A brilliant programmer who'd been relegated to maintenance work because of his unconventional appearance. These are my people, the underestimated ones. Unlike my father's oak-paneled fortress designed to intimidate, my office features glass walls and open spaces. No portraits of stern-faced ancestors judging from gilded frames. Instead, candid photos capturing team celebrations and project launches. Our quarterly numbers display on the wall screen. Company value up 17% since acquisition. Not through cutthroat tactics, but through innovation and ethical partnerships. Proving worth doesn't require crushing others. Later that afternoon, I enter our newly designed boardroom for the quarterly strategy meeting. Where Father's rectangular mahogany table once created a hierarchy with him at the head, our circular design ensures every chair holds equal weight. No power position, no silent corners where voices disappear. Before we begin, I say, I'd like to hear concerns about our expansion timeline. A junior analyst raises her hand tentatively. The vendor transition schedule seems aggressive. We might need another week for proper testing. 10 years ago, at a Christmas dinner, my father slammed his fist when I raised similar concerns. I'd been silenced, dismissed. Today, I nod and lean forward. Let's explore that. What specific risks do you see? As she outlines her thoughts, gaining confidence with each point, I catch my reflection in the polished table surface. The woman looking back bears little resemblance to the girl who fled a decade ago. Same eyes, but steadier. Same voice, but certain. When the meeting concludes, the team disperses with clear direction and renewed energy. No one leaves feeling diminished. The evening brings a small gathering in my penthouse. James, who believed in me when I arrived in Austin with nothing but determination. Martha, who retired from the family estate to become my executive assistant. And Mother, now 6 months sober. Her hands steady as she arranges fresh flowers in a crystal vase. To building rather than breaking. Mother raises her sparkling water, her voice stronger than I have ever heard it. The woman who once disappeared into wallpaper now mentors women entrepreneurs through our foundation, turning her decades of survival into list and wit others. We clink glasses as the city lights twinkle below us. After they leave, I stand before the illuminated display case in my office. Inside rests my grandfather's battered laptop, the one he used to draft his first business plan in 1978. Beside it, I place his gold pocket watch, which I repurchased last month from the pawn shop where I'd reluctantly sold it 10 years ago. My fingers rest on the glass as I consider tomorrow's foundation meeting. We're finalizing the Clark Innovation Scholarship funding for brilliant minds without connections or pedigrees. Students like I once was, with vision but no voice. Mother has taken an active role in the foundation, channeling her regret into purpose. Brandon faces indictment for financial improprieties. Father lives alone in a smaller house, his empire gone. Savannah posts fewer selfies and more substance lately. Perhaps witnessing consequences has sparked growth. As I placed my grandfather's watch beside his laptop in the display case, I wondered what matters most in legacy. Reclaiming what was taken or creating something entirely new that honors the past while building the future. What would you choose to focus on if you were standing in my shoes? The answer seems clearer with each passing day. Legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you build.